So the 2015 NFL regular season is officially in the books, and it's locked in the top 20 picks. The draft order is official for those 20 teams that did not make the playoffs. So it's time for me to give you another updated 2016 NFL mock draft, which I will continue to do every week until we get to April 28th of 2016 and the beginning of the 2016 NFL draft. Now, this particular mock is a 3-round edition, as previously promised. You can check out all the picks in the description box down below. Again, a lot is due to change, obviously. The playoff order, for those teams that made the playoffs, we don't know where they're going to be picking yet, so it is what it is with those picks at this particular moment. In terms of my philosophy for this mock draft, it was a combination of a couple of different factors. Number one, in some cases, where I think certain players will end up, even if it's not with that specific team. Number two, it's what certain teams might envision as being like a best player available scenario. Other teams drafting based off of need or best player available at a position of need. There are certain picks that factor in the dipshit or what the hell are they thinking factor. There's always those picks every year, and too often in mock drafts we don't get enough of those. I try to give you a couple of those as well. So let me talk about some of the actual picks, and I'll kind of try and focus on the top 10 here. And then if you have other questions about other picks or my philosophy about your teams deeper into the draft, leave your thoughts and questions in the comment section below, and I'll try to answer as many of them as I can. Starting off with the number 1 overall pick, the Tennessee Titans. Congratulations. You sucked, but you sucked right, and you got the number 1 pick. You hold the cards. You get the choice. You have the control and the power. A part of the problem for the Tennessee Titans is, to me, is that there isn't a clear-cut choice in terms of a clearly number 1 player in this draft, combined with a clearly number 1 need. To me, if there was, in theory, a clear number 1 need for the Tennessee Titans, it would be the running back position, and the number 1 running back in this class is Ezekiel Elliott out of Ohio State. I don't know that they could sit there and take him with the number 1 overall pick, and in an ideal world for me, the Tennessee Titans would be able to trade down a few slots and get some additional picks, and then still get their guy in Ezekiel Elliott, and it'd be fine, and I think it would be great. It's just probably not very realistic and probably not going to happen. So as a result, the Tennessee Titans are going to sit there at the number 1 overall slot, and you'll see some people talk about they need to take Joey Bosa or, whatever. I think at the end of the day, they've got to look offensive line here, because I don't know that there's much of a difference in terms of the top players in this draft. You can make an argument for a few of them potentially going number 1, meaning there's not a clear-cut number 1 guy. Also, when you look at Laremy Tunsil, he has the ability to be a very, very good left tackle at the NFL level. Allows you to slip Taylor Laquon to the right side, meaning you've upgraded multiple positions on your offensive line with 1 pick. That's a good thing to accomplish with 1 pick. Also, when you look at it, the philosophy has to be better protecting Marcus Mariota, because he had those flashes of brilliance, but the problem was he got hurt multiple times, and he was under siege a lot behind that not very good Tennessee offensive line that has invested multiple high picks already into the position. They need to get better on that offensive line, because it'll help the running game, it'll help the passing game, it'll help Marcus Mariota's growth and development. So at the end of the day, the Titans have to play it safe here, and it's a sensible, solid pick, taking Tunsil number 1. For the Cleveland Browns, this is the first pick where I factor in the dipshit factor, because they're the fucking Cleveland Browns, and that's what the hell they would do. Instead of taking a guy like Jared Goff, who to me clearly should be the guy for them at number 2, they would take somebody like Joey Bosa. Now, Bosa is a very, very good talent, and I think he could be potentially a very, very good NFL player. But will the Browns continue to run a 3-4 under their next head coach? That remains to be determined. Does Joey Bosa really fit as an end in a 3-4? I don't know if he's the best fit there. I don't know if he's the best fit as a 3-4 outside linebacker. It would be just like the Cleveland Browns to take a guy number 2 overall, and instead of making sure they built their defense around him and making sure that they got the absolute most out of him, they would just try to pound him in place and plug him in place and say, you figure it out. Joey Bosa needs to be on a team where he could be a left end in a 4-3, and he could be a really, really good one, in my opinion. In this particular case, you look at it here, the Cleveland Browns, they would pass up on the quarterback and say, we'll get him later, because that works so well with Brady Quinn, right? That works so well with Brandon Weeden, right? That works so well with Johnny Manziel, right? It would be just like this organization. In terms of the San Diego Chargers at number 3, there's not like one super sexy pick. Maybe some of the Chargers fans with Eric Weddle probably being shown the door would sit there and say maybe a Jalen Ramsey. I don't think a Ramsey is worth a top 10 pick in this draft, at least the way I see it at this moment. So you're left with, what else do you have? You could go defensive line, and that would make a lot of sense. If there was a wide receiver that was worth the number 3 overall pick, that would really make a lot of sense here. I think in this case they might reach a little bit to address their biggest need, which is offensive line, because Rivers did the best he could considering the circumstances of the situation, but with all the injuries on the offensive line and the lack of quality players on that offensive line to begin with, exposing those depth problems even more once the injuries started to happen. Doesn't matter if you have a bunch of great wide receivers out there. If you can't consistently protect your quarterback and you can't open up better holes in the running game, it's not going to matter. Ronnie Stanley has the potential to be a long-term left tackle at the NFL level. You're going to be, if you're the San Diego Chargers, still Phillip Rivers' team for the next few years. You extended him, gave him big money, and you're kind of in that no man's land in a way of a sense of you really need a full and complete rebuild, but you can't fully and completely rebuild as long as Phillip Rivers is your quarterback. But you can't just send Phillip Rivers packing because he's been very good for that organization for a number of years, especially if you're getting ready to potentially move to Los Angeles. As a result, they've got to get somebody to help Phillip Rivers. They've got to protect him better. They've got to help out the running game better, and that's where Ronnie Stanley comes in. The Dallas Cowboys at number 4, a quarterback has to be their number 1 team need. I know they have other needs, as their 4-12 record indicates they do. This has been a mediocre team for a lot of years. They had that one kind of blip on the radar in 2014, but right back in 2015. You could blame the Tony Romo and Des Bryant injuries. There were other problems all over the place, too. But at the end of the day, this is a team that has criminally neglected the backup quarterback position for years, and it can't happen anymore. In this particular case, based off the way this board breaks down, if the Dallas Cowboys pass on a quarterback like Jared Goff, they are fucking insane. Now, to me, yes, I still think that Carson Wentz is the best quarterback prospect in this draft, but based off of the situation and the circumstance, I think Jared Goff is more pro-ready, and Romo is an injury waiting to happen at this point. You don't know if he's done. You don't know if he can come back and stay healthy. Got to go with the guy that's most ready to play, and I think that's Jared Goff. With the Jacksonville Jaguars, again, this is one of these teams that can sometimes go off of the reservation. I think on the defensive side of the ball, they value speed and athleticism above all else. I do think Myles Jack makes a lot of sense for them. Maybe this is a team that goes into free agency and plucks away a Bruce Irvin from the Seattle Seahawks. That would make some sense with Gus Bradley's ties to that organization. So maybe this pick wouldn't happen. But maybe they would envision Myles Jack as a safety or a bit of a hybrid guy that you could do a lot of different things with. I'm a really, really big fan of Myles Jack as a prospect. And I think as the time goes along, you're going to hear a lot more buzz about him because of his athleticism and all the different things he was asked to do at UCLA and how they project to the NFL level. I don't think there's a perfect fit here for Jacksonville at number 5. I think it's a little early to take one of the corners or Jalen Ramsey. I'm not sure they need to take another defensive end when they just took one in Dante Fowler in the last draft at number 3 overall. Both of the top offensive tackles are off the board. In this case, I think they need to gamble on the athleticism and the upside that Myles Jack brings. With Baltimore at 6, there's not a clear-cut 3-4 outside linebacker worth that 6 overall pick. Also, I don't think there is a corner or defensive back worth that 6 overall pick. As a result, looking at Ozzie Newsome, I think he would value a defensive end that's a perfect fit for his 3-4 like DeForest Buckner from Oregon. A lot of people sleep on him. A lot of people don't give him the recognition for how good of a prospect he is. In my opinion, he's potentially a top 5 talent in this draft. As a result, Baltimore getting him here at number 6, it might not be a sexy pick that gives people a bunch of hard-ons and chubbers where they go, no! But he's kind of like a double, maybe a triple. And Ozzie Newsome likes those type of players. This is a guy from a big program that's had a lot of success, and he's a perfect made defensive end for your 3-4. It's a position he played at college. He's perfect for it. When you look at the 49ers at number 7, quarterback is a very distinct possibility, but once Jared Goff will go off the board, they probably cry themselves into a stupor. And frankly, who knows what the hell this organization is going to do, because this organization doesn't know what the hell they're going to do. In this particular case, as bad as the quarterback position is for them, and it is, don't get me wrong, wide receiver is a huge area of need, too. And in this particular case, a Laquon Treadwell, it may be just a tad early for him, but not too bad. They need somebody at the wide receiver position. I mean, Anquan Bolden's pretty close to done. Torrey Smith, they need somebody. And if you're going to bring a young quarterback in, it's great to bring a young quarterback in, but he's got to have somebody to work with. Maybe the 49ers would be better off waiting until round 2 or 3 to address the quarterback position and going with somebody like a Treadwell, who could do a lot of things and just a really good, solid football player. The Dolphins at number 8 with Cameron Wake's injury and age. I think you look at a guy like Emmanuel Ogbah from Oklahoma State. They just need defensive playmakers on their front 7. and probably throughout that in all three levels of that defense. Ogbah is a really good place to start, and a guy that I would think would rise as the draft process goes along. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I did this mock, in fairness, before the shocking news yesterday of Lovie Smith being fired by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But even if they bring in, if they promote Dirk Cutter to become the new head coach, this team still needs help on the defensive side of the ball. They need an impact edge rusher in that 4-3 that they run. And a guy like Shaq Lawson could potentially be that. And then I look at the New York Giants with all the different needs they have. They need help at defensive end. Well, in this particular case, Bosa, Buckner, Ogbah, Lawson are all off of the board. So any other defensive end they would take at this moment probably is a bit of a reach. And then in terms of the linebacking position, you look at what happened with Jalen Smith and his knee injury. It sounds like he might have torn his ACL and or MCL. So he might not play at all in 2016. Do the Giants really want to spend a top 10 pick on a linebacker that's going to have to redshirt a year when they haven't spent a first-round pick on a linebacker in over 3 decades? I don't know. You could look at corner, and it's very likely that a corner or safety could end up going here, and it would make a lot of sense. But when you look at that team, one problem that they have is with the running game and the balance in their offense. Now, they got a little more out of Rashad Jennings towards the close end of the year, but man, Ezekiel Elliott, to me, is one of the safest picks in the draft. He's one of the best players in this entire draft, if not the best player in this entire draft. When I see him, I see a lot of Matt Forte. And I don't care what anybody says. Yes, Matt Forte was a second-round pick out of Tulane in 2008. But if you're looking at a running back on the board compared to other prospects in the draft, and I tell you that you're going to get 8 years of Matt Forte, would you take him with a top 10 pick if you had to? You absolutely fucking would. In my opinion, if you did, you would be insane. And as a result, based off of the way this particular scenario breaks down, if the Giants didn't take him, they would be insane. Insane. You got to do a better job of protecting Eli Manning. You need more balance in that offense. And, man, Ezekiel Elliott could really make a big difference immediately for a new head coach. And this Giants team with an Ezekiel Elliott in the backfield could make the playoffs in 2016, especially in that crappy NFC East. Other notable picks that stand out, obviously I'll talk about my Chicago Bears taking Jalen Ramsey. Probably break my heart in the sense that they pass on Carson Wentz. But, you look at Jalen Ramsey, he would play safety for the Chicago Bears, I would assume. And, man, him and Adrian Amos back there in the back end of that secondary would be a really nice combination to have for several years to come. I want Carson Wentz in a bad way, but if they took somebody like a Jalen Ramsey with his upside, especially at the safety position, I'm not going to be too upset about it. The Oakland Raiders are number 14. Again, some of you might be surprised that Hargreaves is actually only the second corner going off of the board here. I think a guy like Eli Apple with bigger size might test out better come combine time. A team like New Orleans might reach for him a bit at number 12. Hargreaves might drop a little bit because he showed some flashes in 2015 of getting burned. He didn't look like the clear-cut number 1 corner that we've been talking about him being since the 2014 season finished. As a result, though, the Raiders really luck into it at number 14, being able to get a guy like him where they would. I mean, their biggest area of need, arguably, is the cornerback position and that secondary as a whole. And to get a guy like Hargreaves at number 14, you got to be really happy about it. You'll notice I've got Carson Wentz going 15 to the St. Louis Rams. They're talking about going into 2016 with Case Keenum as their starter. That's basically the Rams saying we're getting a quarterback in this draft somewhere. Unless they think Sean Mannion is that guy. Oh, good God, help us all. You'll notice I've got Paxton Lynch going all the way to 26 to Houston. It's just one of those scenarios where a lot of other teams are going to pass on a quarterback. I think Paxton Lynch, frankly, this is more of the range of where he should actually be drafted based off of the reality of who he is as a prospect and how much work there needs to be done on his game. I think 26 to Houston is a good fit for all parties involved. I really do. So, again, it's a 3-round mock. You can check out all the picks in the description box down below. Let me know what you think. If I didn't talk about your team or one of their picks, don't take it personal. It's just a matter of it is what it is. But you can ask me some questions about it. You can give me your thoughts and comments in the comment section down below. And I'll be back again next week with another mock draft. Make sure you start checking out some of the prospect scouting reports that I've done. So far, I've done, 4 of the quarterbacks. I did Carson Wentz, Jared Goff, Paxton Lynch, Connor Cook. I'll probably move on to Ezekiel Elliott next. What I'm doing, just so you know, is I'm focusing on the biggest name prospects first, and then I'll be filling in the pieces over the next few months. So if you want my thoughts on these prospects specifically, then go check out those scouting report videos on this channel.